So I have a question about the Department of Education, the downsizing that's currently happening there and potential just shuttering of it generally, partly because I have young kids and I'm about to make a decision about where to send my son to kindergarten next year. My question is, what's going to happen to those dollars that flow through the Department of Education to districts and schools? So the Title I dollars, the Title III dollars, are those are those going to go away? Are those pots of money going to get smaller? Being in Texas, our state legislators are, pretty regularly talking about school funding, and we might have vouchers after this session. There's a lot of talk about what the per student funding is going to look like here at our state, and I'm curious what these changes at the federal level mean for students and teachers in the classroom too.
Fantastic question. Professor Spicer.
Everything that I'm aware of is that they're going to take the funds, ship them to the states, and remove the bureaucracy. So this should be a win for local municipalities and school districts and states.
Okay.
Dan.
I think we don't know that because one of the things they're talking about is not just getting rid of the bureaucracy, but cutting dollars to achieve savings. And there's been everything from like 8 to 10% put out there. So we don't know. Is that just headcount and paper clips and real estate that is going away? Or is that part of the money that we spend on services? And I think this is where there has been no explanation of what the new kind of iteration of service is going to be, right? All we're hearing about is the cuts. At some point, you need to step forward and say, here's how we envision this working. Here's, are we going to put any strings on it when we send it to the states or not? And so I think to be determined, but I think you have a right to kind of have some questions.
Yeah. Aaron, do you live in Austin or somewhere else?
I live in Fort Worth.
Fort Worth. So I think I do too. The greatest slogan in the history of politics, not for a candidate, but for a ballot measure, was in Austin when they wanted to build light rail. And the people who oppose using the tax monies for light rail said, costs too much, does too little. And I think that's what's happened with our education spending, not just at the federal level, but at the state level too. We spend too much on educating, given the results we get. So I think I more agree with Dan than Sean that I don't think we know yet exactly how this is going to go. But for me, people shouldn't be looking to Washington to fix education. It's a state and local issue. That's the tradition in this country. It's very little of the spending on education does come from Washington. And of all the things in the government that are underperforming, education's top. Our performance is the worst and has the greatest impact on our society. So for parents, you got to demand that your local system does better. It's got to get more bang for the buck. Kids in public schools need to be better educated, given how much we're spending on it. But I just don't think Washington is ever going to be the answer. So I understand your concern because part of what's going to fund your kids' education if they go to public school is federal money. But that federal money has not solved the problem, right? It's not worked. It's not been part of its solution, and I don't think it ever will be. And certainly, Sean may be right or Dan may be right. It's going to be less, maybe not in terms of some of the money, but there's going to be less spending on education. Pat Buchanan used to call the people who worked at the Department of Education bureaucrats in sandals and beads. I'm not sure that's 100% right, but I don't think we've improved education very much in this country, if at all, at K through 12, as the Department of Education has grown. So I get why people hear education cuts and they get worried, but I just tell all parents, focus on state and local. Your governor and your local officials, they should be the ones you're on the top of to say, why are we spending so much? And I pick this fight all the time, particularly after COVID. If you think that teachers unions are part of the solution, explain how. Okay, explain how, because it doesn't appear to many Americans that they're part of it.